Hello Year 9 and welcome to today's lesson. I'd like to start off by doing a little bit of maths. We've got two maths questions on the board here. I'd like you to work out the answers. Pause the video now so that you have time to do your workings out. Restart it when you have two answers. Okay, so we have a look at question 1 there. It's talking about bombing the capital of Warsaw, which it calls the Jew capital. What does that tell us about what's really being taught here? Well, what's really being taught in both of these questions are Nazi beliefs. They're not really about maths at all. The first question is teaching us that war is good and normal and glorious, and that it's okay to go and murder lots of people. In particular, Polish people or Jewish people. So it's very what we call anti-Semitic. That is hating the Jews. Question number 2 here, I find equally distressing. The beliefs behind it. What it's really saying is that people with disabilities or illnesses are not worth the money that we spend on keeping them alive. They are quite literally putting a price on human life, saying some humans are worth more than others. And the state shouldn't be looking after those people. They should be using that money in order to breed a better kind of people. So both of them have hidden inside them really horrible Nazi beliefs. Now, we might call a belief a doctrine. And from that, we get the word indoctrinate. Both of these examples here are evidence that the Nazis were indoctrinating young people at school. That is, they were forcing Nazi beliefs on them. They were brainwashing them. So from now on, instead of saying that the Nazis brainwashed people into believing Nazi policies, I want you instead to say the Nazis indoctrinated these people. As you may have guessed from that starter then, today we're going to be looking at Nazi control of young people. Please can you put as your title, how effective was the control of youth in Nazi Germany? Hopefully by the end of this lesson we'll be able to describe the methods of control and judge their effectiveness. So, if you were going to try and control young people, what areas of life would you ensure you influenced? Well, I'd make sure that I controlled schools. If I control what you are taught, what you are learning, I'm going to really be able to shape the way you think. Because I can selectively teach you some things and keep you ignorant about others. I'd also want to control your leisure time. So you're in school 9 to 3, but what about all of those other hours and over the weekend? What if I could control those as well? The Nazis therefore made sure that they controlled both what young people did at school and what young people did in their leisure time in order to indoctrinate them and turn them into proper little Nazis. Now let's start off by thinking about how the leisure time was controlled. Now the Nazis got rid of all youth organisations that weren't under control, and they replaced them with this thing called the Hitler Youth. Now, the Hitler Youth was a youth movement, a bit like the Scouts in some ways. It had different groups for different ages, different groups for girls, different groups for boys, and in many ways it was quite militaristic. That is, it was organised a bit like the army. Now, the Hitler Youth did things like teach fishing, go camping, go cycling, collect money for the Nazis. It was very, very gendered, so girls and boys did very different things within the Hitler Youth, and that's because they were trying to shape them into Nazi adults. So the activities the girls did in the Hitler Youth tended to be about being a good mother and about a good wife, so teaching them things like sewing and cooking. Whereas for the boys, it was much more about getting them ready to go and join the army. So they did things like orienteering, map reading, camping, shooting, marching, that kind of thing. Both girls and boys, though, did receive Nazi education. So they would sit round, for example, and listen to Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf being read out loud. Now, it became compulsory to be in the Hitler Youth from 1939. That means you had to be part of it by law. That means pretty much every child in Germany was being influenced by the Nazis in their leisure time. I'd like you to pause the video now and watch this BBC clip to learn a little bit more about the Nazis. Now, using the information on the uploaded document on Show My Homework, please can you now complete these 4 questions? It was also very important to the Nazis that they control education. Now, this is because education shapes your viewpoint, how you see the world. So the Nazis introduced a Nazi curriculum. That is, they taught certain subjects in certain ways in order to turn the children into believers in Nazism. For example, in history, children were taught all about the Treaty of Versailles and how unfair it had been on Germany. They were taught about the great German heroic past, which had been ruined when Jews came to Germany. In science, they were taught about the superiority of the German race and the inferiority of other races, such as black people or Jewish people. In music, they were taught about great German musicians, and certain kinds of music were prohibited, for example, jazz. Now, in order to have this kind of curriculum, they had to purge the teachers. Teachers who didn't agree with what the Nazis believed were removed. Every teacher had to be part of the Nazi Teachers League, and they had to swear an oath of allegiance to Hitler in order to join. Jewish teachers were removed, and any teacher who might speak out against the Nazis was removed. This meant it was only Nazi teachers teaching Nazi curriculum left in schools. The curriculum was also heavily gendered. Girls were taught the importance of housework, being a mother, whilst boys were taught maths and engineering and things that might help them in order to be a better army officer eventually. There was, however, for both of them, a real focus on being fit and healthy so that these kids could go on and produce lots of children themselves, so building a new perfect German or Aryan society. We also increasingly saw the exclusion of Jewish children from German schools. Initially, they moved to separate classes, but eventually they can't go to school at all. This is also happening higher up the education system, in universities as well. I'd like you to watch this BBC clip and then answer the 4 questions on the slide. Now, given everything that we've learned today, it seems like the Nazis were excellent at controlling young people. They controlled every aspect of their lives. What they learnt at school, what they did outside. They were constantly reinforcing Nazi messages to kids who just don't know any better. As a child, you haven't yet developed the ability really to question what your elders are telling you. It's not surprising, therefore, that many historians really emphasise how successful the Nazis were in indoctrinating and controlling young people. The vast majority of young people went along with what the Nazis wanted. And you know what? They actually liked it. The Nazis were providing opportunities to go camping, to enjoy yourself, to feel special and feel a part of something in a way that maybe government before them hadn't. However, you know from being in a school that not everybody conforms. That is, not everyone will do what they're told. Some people will always rebel. Next lesson, we'll be going and looking at the youth rebellion. What was it that young people did, in order to show that they opposed the Nazis? I'd like you to think about that for next lesson. What kind of opposition do you think young people took? What actions did they take?